thanks very much to Karen Jinks for volunteering her time and knowledge to share with us. Karen's been a member of it. Well, how long have you been a member of Open Studio?
I joined a very long time ago. My daughter was a baby. She's now 18, but I didn't stay for long. I think I only did a few years and then left. I've had a bit of hiatus doing other things. So this is the first year of rejoining.
Oh, well, welcome back. That's great news. Yeah.
Now that I have a studio, so it's perfect, really. So.
Yeah. Well, do you want to introduce yourself very briefly?
Yeah, so many of you will know me. I've been a graphic designer for over 25 years. I don't know. I graduated in the mid-90s when we did everything the old way. It was literally cut and paste. And then I moved into doing wedding stationery when my son was a baby, just to keep things ticking along while looking after him. And then moved into web design over the years. So always been a graphic designer, but always painted on the side as well, sort of trying to, because I do illustration as part of my graphic design as well, but I've always wanted to paint. So over the span of 20 years, I've done various different things. I set up my own network, Cambridge Creative Network, where we had lots of artists coming to meetups, and we did exhibitions and all sorts of different things. So I have many fingers in many pies. Have learnt things along the way. So brief sort of what we're going to go through today. I'm going to try and keep it very simple and not too long. We are going to touch on things which you can go into a lot more detail, but I don't really want to do that today because we'll be here all day otherwise. So it's great. Just really a case of just sort of an overview of getting yourself organised, not just for your open studio, but everything we go through today. Hopefully you will continue after your open studio as well, because your open studio is a real opportunity to get those important email addresses, which I'll explain as we go through. So
Karen, are you going to share your screen?
I already have. Is it not showing? Oh.
No.
Hang on.
Is anybody?
Sorry, I thought it was.
Yeah, we had it nicely.
Yeah, it was working, and then it wasn't. Anyway, let's try again. No, it's disappeared. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No. What can you see?
Well, we can see your desktop.
You can see my desktop, right? That's a good start.
Yeah.
I'm not used to Microsoft Teams. We normally use something else, and it's not my computer. So yes, look at that. Can you see it now?
Yes, that's great. So,
brilliant. Right. Okay. I can't see anybody else. So if anything disappears, you'll have to let me know because I can't tell.
Okay, we'll shout out.
Okay. So. Right, so brief introduction. As I've already said, this is going to be a very simple marketing overview for you to kind of get yourself organised. I'm not going to use buzzwords, marketing words or anything like that. It's just a case of a very simple way to think about how you prepare your content from now up until your open studios and afterwards as well.
Sorry, Karen, can I interrupt briefly?
Yeah.
I meant to say at the beginning, if you have questions as Karen's talking through these slides, just pop them in the chat, and when Karen's ready at a suitable moment, she'll ask for questions, and Richard will keep an eye on those, and I'll keep an eye on if a question occurs to you during the Q&A section and you don't feel you've got time to write it in the chat, just use the raise hand button on the icon bar. So, okay, thanks, Karen.
Okay. Yeah, so if we move on to the next slide. Marketing really is about getting organised. It's about getting yourself doing a little bit of work at the beginning to then help you along the way, because it doesn't have to be complicated, as it says on the slide, but it can be time consuming. So the more you do beforehand, the easier it will be as you go along, because really we all want to be painting. We all want to be doing the fun stuff. So figuring out a few sort of key objectives will really help. And this is overall in your artist career. It's not just for the open studio. So you need to basically decide what it is you want to do. So do you just want to sell artwork? That's perfectly valid. Do you do, obviously you will do events and exhibitions. So you need to think about how you promote yourself for those. Maybe you want to approach galleries, all that kind of thing. So every single task you do, every event that you have, you will need to set up a little mini strategy for each. They have to be separate. You have to really target what it is you're going to do and how you're going to do it. So these are what we call your objectives. And in a very simple way, you have to make yourself a plan. I'm not very organised. I mean, hands up, I don't do a lot of this myself because I'm busy flying around doing lots of different things. But I do, I mean, it's real life. We all have many things to juggle, but do what you can. I have put some links at the end of this presentation, which will get sent out to you as well. So if you do want to go into all this information in a lot more detail, because you can, then there are a few links that will help get you started and actually do some research. But in simple terms, what I recommend that you do, so in context of your open studio, you need to start thinking about how, I mean, a lot of you may be doing this already as well, so forgive if I'm telling you things you already know, but start with your artist statement. That's really important. It's basically writing good copy. It's about getting good photographs, and then you've got a bank of images and a bank of text. You've got your artist statement is what you start with. Really think about how to write it. This is the hard bit as well. A lot of artists struggle with this bit, but it's really worth spending time thinking about who you are, what you do, what inspires you, what makes you interesting. Write an artist statement that don't get too heavy, don't get sort of bogged down by sort of artist buzzwords and things. Keep it natural, keep it light, keep it about you. And then once you've got a good few paragraphs sort of explaining who you are, what you do, what inspires you, and then think about, maybe not appropriate for the open studios because we are getting a bit close to the time now, and obviously open studios themselves are doing a lot of marketing on your behalf with press releases and things, but try and think about how to write a press release, because what this will allow you to do going forward, so you'll have sort of you'll create. I'm jumping ahead in my slides actually, so let's go through this, and then we'll and then it'll make more sense. So it's basically create a plan, write a press release or an artist statement. Make sure your website is up to date with new work and good quality photographs. This is a thing we'll talk about in a minute. Get your business cards and flyers, any posters printed if you need to. Think about the studio itself. I mean, think about, for artist studios, sometimes you'll get a lot of people who will come in and browse. They want, but yeah, a lot of people come and want to look at your house or your studio and not really want to buy. So it's worth thinking about having those little impulse buys, be it cards or prints or mugs or anything that suits your work. You know, you don't have to do everything. It doesn't work for everybody. When I started doing open studios, I didn't have, I couldn't sell prints of my work. For some reason it didn't work, but I did sell smaller versions of my work. People seem to really like that. Making things that are affordable. So make sure when those browsers come round that you capture them with something. Make sure they buy something. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about the Just a Card campaign that started a few years ago, when a gallery owner realised that if everybody who walked into her gallery bought a card, then her gallery would stay open, because I think she did close in the end. Little things like that. So make sure you've got things available within your open studio that optimizes the opportunity for people to buy from you. And then even also make sure they've got something to take away with them, be that postcards or business cards. Make sure they know how to get in touch with you, because they'll be seeing a lot of artists over the course of the open studios, and invariably they will forget who you are. So make sure they have something in their hand, a card or something with your website address on. So it's all little details like this. So you make a plan, make sure you're prepared, make sure you've got everything you need before your open studio. So as I was talking about earlier, we'll go into a bit more detail. So open studios is just over 2 months away, and you should already be getting organised, not just for the event itself, but to make the most of your hard work after July too. So if you do the groundwork now, it'll be easier to keep the momentum going forward. So presumably many of you will have artworks already finished, or like me, they're all half finished. But hopefully you'll have enough work So you can start to take photographs now and create folders of words and pictures that you can draw from as the opportunities to advertise arise and save yourself time, allowing you to spend your time creating. So, are there any questions at the moment? I can't actually see anything. Hello?
We haven't got any in the chat.
No, good, I'll keep going. So, first things first, taking photos. So you've already got artwork, hopefully, that are already finished. You don't need to photograph everything, unless, of course, you're trying to get it on a website. But in terms of marketing, in terms of promoting your open studio, pick about, I don't know, 4 or 6 really good images, your artwork or whatever that is, even if it's 3D, and then get them photographed as well as you can. Obviously, if you can afford to get a photographer to do it for you, you know someone who's fairly nifty with a camera who can do it for you, that's brilliant. But obviously, if you've got a decent camera that you own yourself, or iPhones, smartphones are really good these days. They're much better than they used to be. So there's lots you can do to save yourself money to get a good quality photograph. So there are a few tips. So make sure your work is somewhere in natural light, next to a window or near an open door, outside if it's not too sunny. If it's bright sunlight, I mean, today it's not too bad. So you need a slightly cloudy day to make it worse, because you need the light to be even. You don't want any harsh shadows. You don't want that high contrast you get with sunlight. It will really distort your colours. It's worth doing a bit of research as well to work out how your particular device works, because they're all slightly different. But you can make sure your white balance is set in your camera or in your phone is set to auto, so it adjusts automatically. Check that, obviously, because it's so easy to pick up your camera and take a photo, and then when you get it into your computer, realize it's wonky. So do spend a bit of time just making sure it's actually straight and in the center of the frame. When you do download the photos onto your computer, hopefully these little tips will mean there's less editing to do when you get them into your computer. Obviously use the crop tool to get rid of any surrounding backgrounds and straighten the edges. You can use the brighten and contrast tool in the software to adjust any color in your computer, but actually I use a tool called levels, which allows you to adjust the white balance. You can pick, there's little dropper symbols in the levels tool, which allow you to select the white areas, so you get more even color balance across the whole image. I mean, you can, again, this is something you can really research and really get to fine tune yourself. But again, just these little sort of details can make a difference and save you time. So once you've edited your photos, now you need to think about where these photos are going to go. You need to print flyers, you need to print posters, perhaps you want to get artwork printed as prints, maybe you want to get them onto mugs, all these different places. So they need to be high res images. And high res means it should be 300 dpi. And it used to be there was a distinction between JPEGs and PNGs. So JPEGs are for printed media. I mean, obviously you can use it on websites too. And it used to be that PNGs were designed just for websites, but they are pretty much interchangeable these days. But as a rule, stick with JPEGs for printing. Make sure they're 300 dpi, really high quality. And it may be that some printers, if you're sending work off to printers, they may ask for CMYK as well. Don't ever post a CMYK photo onto a website, because it will make the colors weird. Anything that's digital requires a low res, which is 100, 150, 72 dpi, PNG, and in RGB. Again, I can talk about this in more detail, but it's worth spending a bit of time researching to get the details. I could spend all day talking about these actual specifics, but I just want you to kind of understand, to organize yourself, so that when you come to actually thinking about, oh, I need to have a flyer printed, or I need to send out an event listing, that you've got your images already organized. So you've already got a folder full of high res images, and you've already got a separate folder for your low res images. And while you're at it, name them correctly. I know this sounds, and again, I'm guilty of not doing this too, but if you can, when you save your images after you've edited them and you're saving them into your folders, remember you've got a high res folder and you've got a low res folder, name them. You know, so when it says save as and you've got the opportunity to put a little name next to the JPEG, put your name on them. So, and if they have a title, obviously put the art title in. So if you imagine you're sending off a bunch of images to a journalist, if they are titled with, if your painting is titled and it's got that title on it, that title will actually come, the journalist will actually use that title in the caption of the image. So that's really useful. So if you get into the habit of saving your images with the title, if it has one, and your name, when they go to journalists or when they go off to a printers, it won't get lost. They know it's your image, yeah? Do the same for your low res ones too, because especially on websites and online sites, so if you've got an Etsy shop or on your own website or whatever, if your image is named and it has your name on it as well, that's really good for SEO. I get asked about SEO a lot. And the most important thing you can do, if you can't get your head around anything else, the most important thing you can do is name your images, because Google will pull up images that have your name on as well as actual page links. Does that make sense? So I've done an example under at the bottom of that page. It says, so basically your painting title and then your name. Use hyphens, not underscores. It's good practice now to use hyphens. It used to be underscores, now it's hyphens. And make sure your folders are nice and organized and nice and tidy. And then when, as I say, when you come to actually think, oh, I'd like to get some mugs printed, you know immediately which folder to go to. You all already have an image ready to go in the right format, and then you can just go and order it. You won't have to waste another half an hour trying to find something in your many files of photos, and then waste time. We want you painting. We want you doing all the fun stuff. So it's just thinking about these little tips and tricks to get yourself organized. So alongside the photos, you need to write good copy. This is something that artists struggle with, myself included. As I said earlier, start with your artist statement, because this is a really good way to think about who you are, how you present yourself, what inspires you, how other people will sort of understand what you do. You don't have to do the art jargon. Like I said, keep it natural, keep it authentic, keep it about yourself, tell your story. So that artist statement then can obviously go on your website. You probably already got them on your website. It doesn't hurt to have a look at it, because if you've done it 3 years ago, your art may have changed. So make sure before you open studio that you go back and actually check it and update it, making sure it's relevant to what you do now. And as I said, it may be a bit late to be doing press releases now, but going forward, after your event, and then you end up doing more events going forward, if you've got a press release ready, then you've got something ready to send out. Obviously, they will need adjusting with, because press releases need to have events, locations, dates, the usual things. So you'll have to update it. But if you've got that sort of set body of who you are and what inspires you and what makes you different to everybody else. I mean, I've put on the side here your press release 5 W's: the who, what, when, where, and why. So it's really worth breaking down those 5 different areas, and that will help you do a very basic press release. So also think about, if you're sending out, if you need to, for example, if you found somebody who will share your listing, if you or share, sort of help you promote your open studio, have some copy ready that is specific to your event. So almost like an invitation. So this is what I'm saying, just like the images, if you have different bits of copy that do different jobs and have them ready beforehand in your folders with your images, you'll be ready to go. So if you do have a journalist, a local journalist say, oh, send me a press release, you'll have a little folder. If you put it on Google, on a cloud or a cloud service, iCloud, Google, wherever, you can just send them the link. You don't then have to scramble and get a load of images together and write something that's rushed. You can just send them the link, and that makes it really easy, and it's all prepared. So as I mentioned before, it's worth thinking about products the kind of things you can have in your open studio that will encourage those impulse buys. Sounds very retail, but it is true. You want people to come around and you want people to buy. You want to sell your artwork. And there will be plenty of people who love your big pieces, but obviously can't afford them. But if they can take a small one, then that's great. It's better they go away with something than nothing. So it depends on what kind of work you do. For some people, prints. I've only just started doing prints of my big work, and it is slowly starting to work. It didn't used to work before, so it can vary. I tend to find that my smaller squares, as I've shown you on that first picture, sell better. And then you can obviously charge more. On print, you can get G-clays. There will be lots of companies. There's a good few local ones here at the moment. I'm sure many of you already know them. Get your artwork printed on really good quality paper, and you can charge a bit more. But this is key to making sure your photographs are good quality. So this is what I'm saying. If you suddenly decide you want to get a few G-clays printed, then obviously if you've already got the photos prepared, you can just send them out to the printers. Many artists also do things like tea towels or mugs or cushions or scarves. I mean, if you can do, I mean, I know a printmaker who prints her gorgeous designs straight onto fabric. She does them herself, and that makes them very desirable. So if you can do your own, then do. But there are lots of companies where you can get these things printed for you. And it's just, again, another little takeaway gift or a takeaway product that makes sure that your audience will buy something from you. So preparing for the big day. So you're organised. You've got your photos taken. You've got your copy written. You've thought about business cards, flyers, etc. They're all ordered. And then you've thought about your products and got those ordered. So now you are focused, and now you need to start spreading the word. And then we hit this dreadful social media. Where do we go? So obviously most of us are using Instagram. Oh, I'm pausing, by the way. Does anybody need to ask anything?
No. Richard, are you going to take questions?
Yeah, I can't see any new messages in the box at the moment.
Oh. So let's tackle Instagram. This is the big one. This is the one we all talk about. How do I get engagement? You know, you're busy posting your beautiful work and you get no response. The algorithm changes all the time. I can't even keep up with it. I mean, it's impossible. At the end of the day, just keep going. Just post your beautiful work and keep going. But there are a few things you can do which will help. So with all social media, we're all looking for engagement. What engagement means, though, especially on Instagram, is community. The algorithm is designed to check whether you're actually active. If you're just posting and nothing's happening, it's because you're not posting on other people's stuff. This is as blunt as that. So if you want engagement, you have to engage with other people. So the algorithm, if you before you go post something, if you just spend a little bit of time, 10 minutes or so, having a look at your feed, finding the people that you like, especially if they're people that you know as well, you're more inclined to want to do it, and just leave a few comments on other people's feeds, and then you post something, chances are the algorithm will think, oh yeah, they're active, let's give them a little bit of a bump. And if you do that consistently, then you will get, then the algorithm will push you in front of more people. That is more effective than posting daily, as I understand it now, unless they've changed it again recently. So you don't have to post daily, just be consistent. So even if you only post once or twice a week, do it consistently. Don't worry about posting every single day, because you'll spend all your time trying to work out what to post and actually do your painting or making or whatever you do. So, and also think about when you post. I mean, I'm guilty of this. I've spent a day rushing around and I've done a little bit of work, and finally I actually got the paintbrushes out, and then I want to think, right, I want to share this on Instagram. Chances are it's going to be 3 o'clock in the afternoon when nobody's looking, because they're all gone off to get the kids or whatever, they're still at work. It's actually generally better if you wait until 7 o'clock in the evening when everybody sat down, they've had their dinner, and now they're on Instagram in front of the telly. So, and actually Instagram has a good resource in the settings that will show you when your activity is. So if you can be bothered, do go and have a look, and sort of you can play around with timing. So test one at 3 o'clock, test one at 7 o'clock, test one at 7 in the evening, or test one at 7 o'clock in the morning. See what difference it makes to your engagement. It is spending a bit of time actually looking at that, if you care. If you don't, just keep posting and just keep painting or making, because it's better that you do something than nothing at all. And again, be authentic. There's lots of push about, you know, having your feed look pretty, making sure you know, I don't have time or inclination to do most of that. Be authentic, especially with artists and creators. People really want to see the behind the scenes. They want to see the dirt. They want to see the mess. They want to see us with our hands dirty and actually painting, or like I say, making, whatever you do. That's a lot more interesting than you see the Instagram artists whose clothes match their paintings, and it's all very, you know, it's not real life. Put the real you out there to a point. You don't have to show everything, but just you know, if you're halfway through a piece of work and just stop and take a quick snap of your work in progress and then pop it up on Instagram, which is what I do. I don't think about the timing or anything. I just, right, I'm doing this, it looks interesting, I'm just going to do it now. Then I don't have to think about it again. And just be consistent and just, you know, be real. This is the moment now. But again, particularly with Instagram, do check your profile. Make sure it's well written. Again, it's a bit like your artist statement. These things can make a difference. So check your profile, check it actually says who you are and what you do. Use the bio link. So you'll notice a lot of artists will now be linking to Linktree, or is that, I mean, I use Linktree out of convenience, but it is technically better to get it to link to your website. So you could create a links page on your website, and then use that link in your bio on Instagram to link to that links page. So it would be your website.co.uk/links, and then give them options. Make it really easy for people to navigate to the places you want them to go. So if you want them to sign up to your newsletter, make sure that's on there. You know, if you've got a workshop coming up, you want to book on your workshop, just make it really easy for people to navigate to where you want them to go on their phones. Because websites are not always easy to navigate on phones, and that's a really easy way to do that. Hashtags is also a big thing that people talk about. You don't actually need as many as you think you do, but make them count. One of the links I've put on the end of this slide will actually go into that a bit more detail. I don't really want to talk about it too much here. Again, it's just spending a bit of time to research and look into the hashtags that you should be using that work for you. And that can really make a difference. Don't just put all and sundry on because you're just wasting your time. Just spending a little bit of time to just really think about how you're using hashtags and what works effectively can make the difference. And the last one, Reels. Unfortunately, Instagram has gone the way of the video. It's trying to be Snapchat, it's trying to be all these other things, and videos are the best way to get new followers. I've resisted this for a while, but I am starting to do it a bit more, and it does work. As much as I hate to say it, it does work. So even if you're just, so I would suggest, I don't know if I've got my handy, but you can get these little, oh there it is. You can get yourself these little tabletop tripods, which will, I mean, I've got a sound thing on here, but you also fit you can have little attachments that work for your phone as well. And then that's a really easy way to have it propped up next to you, have your phone ready, and recording as you're painting, and do these little how-tos and do this work in progress things, and then just immediately post them as reels. And it's more spontaneous, and it is a really good way just to get new followers. But as I said, just make it really easy for yourself. Don't get into the detail of it. And I think I'll double check, one of the links at the end will break down how to do reels better than I can explain it. If you do post static pics on your feed, they recommend that you use the carousel feature. That's when you can post more than one photo at a time, so you can swipe through. That's particularly popular as well. As I said, Instagram is a big topic on its own, and we can really go into details on this, but I won't bore you with it today. So blogs and social media, should I blog? Blogs kind of disappeared for a while, and people aren't really doing them. However, it can work to your advantage because blogs are really good for SEO. Blogs, Google really likes new content on websites. And if you're just posting products, chances are, products as in your paintings, that doesn't happen every day. That doesn't happen very often, and it can be quite static. So if you have the time and the energy to write blog posts, and it can be how-tos, it can be the kind of thing you'd put on social media, it's a really good boosting your SEO for your website. And then, of course, if you're blogging, you can repurpose that content to share across all your social media platforms. So whether that's Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest is particularly good if you're doing how-tos. And then that will increase your reach. Again, it is a bit of effort, but it can be really effective. And don't forget to link back to your website as much as possible. Google also likes link backs. So if your website is listed on another website, then that will boost your SEO. Also, especially in terms of your open studio, I'm sure many people are already thinking about little art trails in their local area. So if you do know of other artists that are going to be taking part in open studios that are nearby to you, get in touch with them if you haven't done already. And if you have the budget and you want to do it, you can split costs and you can do like little group flyers. And I mean, here I'm based in Stapleford, and obviously I'm right down the road from Shelford. We have the little local magazines. That's a good way, and that's a really cheap way to advertise and get distributed throughout the villages. I've put posters up on the bus stops. We have the village bus stops are all little hut things, and they allow leaflets to go up. So it's looking for different ways to sort of advertise. And if you're doing that as a group, it means you get to split costs and benefit from everybody else's audience. It's much better to work as a group if you can. Right, the biggest thing you can do for yourself in your open studio, after everything else we've just discussed, is have a mailing list. And this has been true for a good few years now, especially with all the algorithms changing, especially on Instagram and Facebook. It's really hard to reach people. The way a lot of artists are now bypassing this is having their own mailing list. So you can have this on your website, and in your open studios, this is a real advantage because you will get people who wouldn't normally find you. Open studios is a really amazing way to get the general public through your door. And so make sure you have a book visible somewhere in your studio. And really, if you're spend a bit of time talking to people, come and see you and really engage with them, they are more likely to then sign up for your newsletter, and just sort of gently nudge them in that direction. So the more email addresses you can collect through your open studio, the better, because this is really powerful. This will override anything you do on social media, because the general, it's funny because artists tend to want to be on Instagram, but the general public are all on Facebook. And how, you know, I use Facebook rather reluctantly. I'm not very good on it. I'd rather be on Instagram. But like it or not, a lot of the people who follow me, who are interested in my work, are on Facebook because that's how they connect with their family. They use Facebook to connect with their family. Instagram doesn't have that kind of community base. So they're very, like I said, just oh yes. So the important thing with MailChimp, with your mailing list is, I haven't quite mentioned it here, I forgot to put it in, but actually it's quite important. You need to be aware of GDPR. So I would suggest using something like MailChimp, because that's already set up for GDPR and makes it really easy. So it's basically making sure that anybody who signs up to your mailing list, that they've given you permission. So if you've just got a visitor's book and they've signed, put their name and address in that visitor's book, then obviously you've got their permission. So then you can move them to MailChimp. If you're using MailChimp, there are other platforms as well. But MailChimp is set up to allow you to make it easy for you to stay legal, because it gives them the opportunity to leave if they want to. And they have the right to ask what information you hold on them and all sorts of different things. So I would recommend using an actual proper service for doing this. If you do just send it out on your own email, it means you're storing their information on your computer, and that has issues. So I would recommend storing their details in a secure place like MailChimp, MailerLite, whichever platform you go to use. If you do use, if you are keeping email addresses on a spreadsheet in your computer, just be aware of the GDPR laws and make sure you are keeping their data safe and allowing them to be removed should they wish to do so. And also in MailChimp and the other platforms, you also have an opportunity to track how your newsletters that are being used, if they're being opened, what works better. Again, you can kind of test how people, what the kind of information people are interested in. It will tell you how many people open your newsletters, how many people don't, and keep track of the activity. And that can be quite useful if you're so inclined to do that. I don't worry about it. I just post and run. I'm not very good at that. So as I said, you can go old school. Just make sure you've got a visitor's book and a pen handy to make sure people can sign to write down their email addresses. And then you can add them manually to something like MailChimp. You can also and should also have it on your website. So if you've got, I mean, obviously there are various ways of having a website. So if you've got a Wix one or a Squarespace one, it's really easy to add a block within your homepage to have a little sign up box there, and then make sure that is synced to MailChimp or wherever. And then you can also have a separate newsletter page. So on my website, I've got a block on my front page, and then I've also got a separate newsletter page which is linkable to, but I haven't actually got it linked in my menu on my website. It's just there so I can link to it from Instagram. Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense. So keep it, have 2 or 3 different options to make sure you can reach as many people and give them the opportunity to sign up to your newsletter. If you are technically minded, you could, I've seen this in various places now, the youngsters are now doing QR codes. They'll have a really nice sort of graphic on an A4 sheet of paper and have it stood up in an acrylic stand with a QR code saying sign up to my newsletter. So people can come along with their phones and just scan that QR code and it'll take them to their newsletter page. And that's a sort of modern nifty way of doing things. So in summary, so everything we've discussed in this presentation is the foundation for a strong and cohesive marketing plan that should continue after your open event has finished. So you do this for your open studio. It's very easy to think, right, I've got through that. That's it. Let's go back to normal. Don't. Really keep it up. It's small, sort of do little and often. You don't have to keep on it all the time. You can if you want to. There's lots you can really sort of find out about and really go into real detail. But just keep it, just think about what's easy for you to achieve and do little and often, but keep it going, because once you've used, especially getting all those email addresses from your visitors in your open studio, that is a real opportunity to keep it going. And send out those newsletters. You will have an engaged audience already because they want to be there, and then just keep showing them what they do. And then when you've got your next event, you'll have a list already to email, and they will turn up, So, and it's little things like when you go out and about and you happen to bump into someone, you have a conversation, you talk to a shop owner or whatever, have business cards or flyers in your bag or in your pocket or whatever. Always carry stuff with you. I always forget to do this and then I regret it. Oh, if I only had a business card on me. Make those connections. I did actually used to go to quite a few business things as well, as horrific as that sounds, but it's really good. It's amazing how many business people, if you're a business, do actually like to paint on the side, or are an artist in secret, and to actually connect with other people who, although they look like business people, actually have other things going on. Or they might be able to provide you with an opportunity that you haven't thought of. So always make sure that you're prepared, basically. So even though sort of marketing can seem a bit tiresome or ineffective, it feels like we're doing all this work and not necessarily getting something back. At the end of the day, you've got to remember you are selling you. You are unique. You are your own USP, and just be yourself and share what you do, and it will come back. If you sit there and you're just posting and not doing anything and think, well, nobody's looking, then you need to actually get out there and engage yourself. You have to build a community. You have to connect with other people for them to want to connect with you. That's really important. It's difficult for some people, and I do know that, but it makes such a difference. If you don't want to do it in person, if you don't want to go to network events, you can do it online. So these are the useful links. We will send this slide out to you. I might do a print ready version as well, so you can actually print it out, one that's a bit more friendly for your printers. So it just goes into, you know, if you want to know how to edit photos and you don't want to pay for Photoshop, there are alternatives. Sophie Mahir, I discovered recently, she's quite good at sort of talking about tips on marketing your Open Studio and things you can do beyond as well. Sort of looking at ways how you want to, if you want to sort of do ebooks, if you want to try and get some passive income, print on demand, there's also all sorts of other things you could be doing as an artist that will help with your income and your engagement as well. If you're interested, you can find out how to do an artist-focused marketing plan. There are lots of people out there who will go into more detail. How to write press releases for an art show, that kind of thing. So there's more. I've linked to a website there that says how to name your images for SEO to explain it in more detail than I've mentioned, and so on and so forth. And there's a few companies there that will do print on demand, but you can also order stuff for your Open Studio. So if you want to do mugs or notebooks or cushions or tea towels, that kind of thing. The Imaging Centre are good for really cheap wholesale costs of getting cards printed. And I'm sure if there are local companies, there are going to be loads of local companies as well. If you can go local and you can afford it, obviously support your local businesses too, but these are good online ones. Oh, excuse me. And then you've got a link to how to use reels, how to create reels, how to sort of brief how to use hashtags effectively, and oh yeah, and a list sort of comparing some of the email marketing software. So that's a very basic list to get you started. Okay, thank you very much. I hope I haven't put you all to sleep. Let's find you. There we are.
Thanks, Karen.
Stop sharing.
I think we've got some questions.
Yes, go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Does that stop sharing?
We can't see. Yes, it stopped
Yes,
sharing.
Good.
We could do with seeing your face though.
Oh, can you not see my face?
No.
Oh, no.
No.
Oh,
I can.
know.
I can see you.
Hi, Claire.
I can.
Oh,
I can see you.
I don't know. Silly technology. I don't know.
Oh well.
So, questions?
Yeah. Richard, do you want to take these? You're muted at the moment.
Yeah, no, I keep dropping out actually and rejoining, so I might not be the best person to organise this.
Oh right. Yeah, and we've still got static as well.
I just wonder what an SEO is actually.
SEO. That's search engine. Say again. Got many people stuck. Search engine optimization. So really dry. So when you have a website, obviously. So when you go onto Google, you search for something. Those websites that appear first are the ones who have got the best search engine optimization. They have paid a lot of money to be at the top. Most of us are like 10 pages back, you know, if not more. So, but Google likes active content. So if you are blogging, which is a bit old school in comparison today, but those websites who have refreshed content and good descriptions for their product pages. So if you're posting artwork, make sure you say more than just that this is an untitled painting, you know, to put a little bit of a description and make each one slightly different. And that will help Google bump you up the searches when people are looking for stuff. And you can also go into sort of keywords as well. So when you go onto Google and you're searching for something, so if you go onto Google and you think about something, you have to kind of put your head into the head of the general public. So what keywords would somebody putting in to then find your work? Yeah, you have to be a bit of a mind reader and then try and put those keywords into your website. all your product descriptions, but do it subtly. You kind of have to write a little paragraph and insert those keywords in a way that feels natural. It's tough, and this is why there are SEO experts, because they're very good at it. But there are simple things you can do yourself. And if you get into the habit of doing it, once you've done it a few times, actually it becomes a bit more natural. And it helps to actually communicate your art to other people. Some artists really don't like talking about what they do. They just do what they do. But it, unfortunately, is kind of crucial to be able to communicate to people, especially if they come into your open studios. They will want to know why you do what you do. So these things all tie in.
I've got one more. Sorry, you still there?
Yep.
My sound is very good. I just got another question about websites. I've got a website that somebody else built for me, and I want to be able to reconstruct it completely, so I can add all current stuff, because I don't have access to it. Do you recommend somewhere that I can use easily myself?
Yeah, so it depends on your budget. Wix is a good place to start if you're new to this. It's a little bit cheaper. You can start free. You will have a rather ugly banner on your website until you pay for something. But it's a good way, and you can have it. You can play with it in the background before you switch your domain name over. So create yourself an account, pick a template, and then have a play. And that's a really good free way of getting started.
Sorry,
and then when you do, there you go.
Which was the website you're recommending?
So that's
Website build.
Wix.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, wix.com. Lots of artists use Squarespace, but that is more pricey. So Wix is a good way to, if you're new to this kind of thing, because it is a drag and drop format. It's actually really easy to use, but it is a bit of a head mess until you get used to it. So start with Wix, and then if you feel ready, you can move up to Squarespace if you've got the budget. So they're both really good platforms and require no coding, which is lovely. I used to do a lot of websites in the old world, HTML and CSS, and it's so lovely not to have to do that anymore. Anybody else?
Hi, Karen. There was a question about, I asked about white balance. Is that a setting that you can put on, set on your iPhone, or is that something that you...
Yes.
Okay. Right.
So if you can get things set up in your camera or smartphone first, it will require less editing afterwards. So try and I can have a quick look. So in your camera, there should be a settings button somewhere. Tone, warmth, yeah. So I'm not that familiar with the iPhone settings at the moment because it's fairly new. I'm used to Android, but somewhere in here you can. The settings are usually either auto, or you should be able to manually adjust them. But it's I can't do it now. I'll have to have a look and look at that in more detail. But yeah, it's do spend a bit of time actually looking at which device you've got and how the settings work. Again, you don't have to go into lots of detail, but the white balance is particularly important above and beyond everything else, aside from making sure it's in focus, of course, because that will help you get the colours correct as much as possible.
Okay, thanks.
And then if it is a particularly dull day and you're trying to get as you know, if you're in a dark room and you really can't get good lighting, then you will have to do a lot of it in the photo editing software. And not everybody can afford Photoshop, so I have linked at the end. You can do things in Canva. You can do. There's one called GIMP, which is good. You can pay for Affinity, which is a Photoshop alternative, which you only have to pay for once. Whereas Photoshop, Adobe software, you have to pay monthly. Affinity, you only have to pay once, and it's just as good. Certainly for somebody, I mean, I'm a graphic designer, I have to have the industry standard, unfortunately, but for those of you who don't, you know, you can use Affinity, and that does the job just as well.
Okay.
Oh, I can see some hands.
Yeah. Richard.
Hi, I just want to recommend a program for mobiles called Snapseed.
Yes.
Which you can use to edit your images very well.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. If you are taking them on your phone, then yeah, do the editing on your phone. The only little bit of a drawback is you might not be able to control the DPI, because if you are like I said, if you are looking to, if you're just using stuff on social media and websites, absolutely fine. If you are looking to actually get stuff printed and it needs to be high quality, high res, then it's worth getting it on the computer, and then you can actually check properly what DPI it is, if it's the right size. It's hard to do on a phone. So yeah, phone. There's one beginning with V. I can't remember. There are quite a few online ones, phone ones, which are really good, especially if you're just getting it onto social media.
Yeah.
Mark?
There's a question from Mark.
Yeah, hi, Gavin.
Hi.
Thank you very much for the talk. You mentioned Facebook would be better for our sort of demographic and that
Yeah.
I haven't got a Facebook art business page, but would you recommend having one? And secondly, is it a myth that you don't? I've read lots of stuff about if you put things on Facebook, you don't actually own it. Facebook,
It's nonsense.
is that a myth? Is it?
Yeah, no, that's nonsense. You honestly, you
all.
post anything online anywhere, somebody's going to steal it. Chances are it's going to be somebody in China who's then going to sell it on Etsy. So putting it on Facebook is not your biggest problem. So yeah, there are lots of these conspiracy things going around. At the end of the day, it's your content. You're putting it on the internet. It's at risk regardless. So here a piece for that. Yeah, have you got a Facebook account at all?
Yes, I do have a and I share photos with friends, but I don't have a specific business page really.
Well, I would say if you've got the energy to do it, then maybe it is good because it does reach more people. I mean, again, I've got friends, contacts on Facebook from when it first started, when it was the thing to have, who aren't on Instagram. So I do, and they are quite often more locally based than my Instagram followers. A lot of my Instagram followers, not that I have that many, are often American. Obviously, you can't come to my workshops. The people who could come to my workshops are on Facebook. So it's worth having a separate page, a business focused page. And what Facebook also allows you to do, because it now owns Instagram, you can use the business suite. So it's the Meta Business Suite, where you can actually do your posts. Again, works better on a laptop than it will on your phone, although you can do it on your phone. But you can actually write a post for Instagram and Facebook simultaneously through the business suite. So you can just write it once, hit the Instagram toggle to then adjust it slightly for Instagram, because Instagram doesn't allow links in the descriptions. But if you then toggle to Facebook, you can then add the links. So that you can make slight adjustments within Meta Business Suite and then post it simultaneously to both platforms. So you can link it up to your business page on Facebook and your Instagram account. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that can actually save you a bit of time, and you can schedule them. So if you're in the mood to do it at 2 in the afternoon, you can actually schedule it to go out in the evening when you're going to be busy having dinner, and then you'll reach the right people. So there are tools you can use to help you do your job.
Yeah. Right, thank you.
Great. Muriel was asking about mailing platforms apart from MailChimp. Did you put a list?
Yes, that is on the link, I think. Yeah. On the last slide. So there's MailerLite. There's a few. I can't remember names. I'm hopeless with names. So yeah, there are a few. They all do slightly different things, and they all cost slightly different amounts as well. So MailChimp, I think you can have up to 1,000 contacts before they start to charge you, and so on. So they all start free, but the bigger you get, then they start to take money off you. So they're all very different. So it's worth doing a little bit of research to work out what works for you.
Great. I was asking about the idea of putting a QR code on the back of the business card, which I'd not thought of before, just as a direct link to your website or your mailing list.
Yeah,
sign
can do that.
Yeah, so you can get them teeny weeny and they're readable.
Yes, they are. Yeah, so all you have to do is point your camera phone at the QR code and it will automatically read it, and then you just hit the link that pops up and it'll take you to that web page. I've got one in my window for my workshops, a poster. I mean, I've got one stuck in the window here in my studio, and it's got a QR code on. So if I'm not here, people can just, you know, snap the QR code, and they don't have to remember the web address. They can just go straight to the website.
Good.
So they are handy.
Can you remind us how you generate a QR code?
Oh yes, so I will add that to the list. So if you Google QR code generator, there will be one that pops up that will be free. They are free. So all you have to do is put in so you've got the link to the page you want the QR code to go to, and you pop that in the box, and then it will download the QR code to you. They're free, they're really easy to use. Anybody can do it. And then it'll send you a PNG image, which you then put into your file, be that for a poster or a business card or whatever.
Yeah. Chris was asking what would be a budget for a reasonable Wix site, ballpark.
So with Wix, like I said, you can have it for free forever if you don't mind the the horrible banner they put across the top, and you also don't get a proper domain name. So if you've got a domain name, you can forward it to the Wix. So it'll have some weird Wix blah 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 nonsense. So when you are ready to pay for a pro plan, it will constantly send you out 50% offer deals for the plans to get you for the first year. So I think there's one, if you Google Wix pricing plans, it'll show you the different plans and compare them. So you can have a basic one if all you're doing is having a gallery of images and you don't need a online shop, then go for the basic business plan. If you want the commerce, if you actually want a shopping cart, you can pick a commerce plan. And if you wait for that 50% offer to come around, you'll get it at half price for that first year. So they're quite cheap to start with. Obviously, the more you need, the more it will charge you. And it's a rolling monthly plan as well, so you're not necessarily committed for a full year. So I think the Artist Marquee, I did the Artist Marquee website, and we were free for quite a while on the Wix plan, but we have just paid for a 2-year plan with the 50% off, and it's worked out about for just under £5 a month for 2 years. That's a good point, actually. You can do it for more than 1 year. You can do it for 2 years. So yeah, again, spend a bit of time doing your research, and then compare that to the Squarespace plans, because that offers more, but it does cost more. But again, they do 20% codes, which you get fairly regularly as well. I've just renewed my Squarespace one and added a membership plugin, which I haven't used before, and I got 20% off the whole lot. And you get more off if you pay for a year rather than monthly as well. So work out what your budget is, work out what you can afford, and then try and bulk buy as much as possible and get those codes. They always make them available. And obviously, if you've got a good website that works for you, it will pay for itself. The few £100 I spent renewing my website, my Squarespace website, has more than paid for itself already with the workshop bookings I can now get through the website. So sometimes it's worth investing.
Thanks, Karen.
Okay.
Muriel was asking if Vistaprint was any good. What printers do you like to use?
Vistaprint is probably the oldest online printing company, and I've never got on with it. It's always too expensive. There are much better companies. I actually use one called Mixam, which I've forgotten to add. I do have, I think it's called Mixam. So they send out these lovely samples. Yeah, Mixam, M-I-X-A-M. I don't know if you can see that. It might be backwards. M-I-X-A-M. They do like books as well. If you want to do a self-published artist book, they're quite good for that. And I always wanted to do a colouring book for kids and stuff. They'll print those as well. They do all sorts of different things. So lots of different. There's so many different printing companies that are a lot cheaper and a lot more flexible than Vistaprint. Again, just do a little bit of research. So I like Mixam. I get my business cards from Mixam because they do all sorts of different papers. My cards are really thick and lovely, and they didn't cost a lot compared to other places. Because Moo are the ones, I don't know if you've heard of Moo.com. They are the ones that particularly target themselves at artists, but they are absurdly expensive. But then you can get cards that each one is different. But this is what I go to say about making sure you've got images ready. If you suddenly decide, oh, I want to get some business cards, if you've got a bank of images already prepared, You then don't have to scramble and try and find something and make sure it's edited correctly. Get that done first. And then you're going to be a lot more spontaneous and a lot more, a lot more able to sort of pivot as opportunities come up. So if you suddenly get approached by a magazine, if somebody's popped, because journalists do go around to open studios, if somebody happens to walk through your door and say, oh, we'd be really interested in doing a feature for you. I mean, you might be lucky they may send a photographer over, but if you've got a bank of images of your artwork that you can give to them, and that's ready to go, that'll be much more beneficial than thinking, oh my God, now what am I going to do? Especially if you've sold stuff as well, if you're lucky enough to have sold stuff. Always make sure you've got everything recorded and a high res and a low res version. It's just to make sure that with marketing, because it can be so heavy handed and so intense and so take up so much time, if you can get, that's the point of this presentation, just to think about getting yourself pre-prepared for stuff, because you never know who you're going to meet and what's going to be around the corner. Just make sure you're ready.
Thanks, Karen. I think Richard had his hand up. I was trying to unmute you, Richard.
Don't worry, I can unmute. I just wanted to ask, I've got a domain name that's actually been managed by Easily. And can I shift that name over to a new Wix?
Yes, you can. So if you have access to your domain account, presumably you do.
No, that's why I can't add to the, well, I mean, I get charged for my domain every year.
Oh, so your designer bought your domain name for you?
Yeah.
Okay, so I would then get your Wix website ready, or wherever you decide to do it, and then say to him or her, ask to have your domain name transferred over to your, so you own it. So you can have it transferred. She might be able to just create you in your account. I mean, it depends who they've registered it with. So it could be 123 Reg, GoDaddy could be all these different companies. So they need to basically give you back your domain name because you own it really. So they would probably have to transfer ownership. Sorry, go on.
I'm just wondering if I can just go straight to Easily and say I'm going to use this domain name somewhere else, and I'll stop paying you, and I'll pay Wix instead.
Yeah. So what I would say is get it set up separately. Never have your domain name attached to your website. Always have it separate. It's like having the keys to your house.
Right.
Keep them separate. Yeah. So have it transferred to a company like 123 Reg, which everybody uses. Make sure it's separate to your website, because if there's any issues with the website, if the server goes down or the company goes bust, you don't lose your domain name.
I thought the domain name was the same as the website name.
No, two different things.
Oh, okay.
So the domain name is literally just a link which can be pointed in any direction. So you just got to make sure you own it and have control over it, and then you can point it which way you want. And there's different ways of doing that too, but again, that's a whole different lesson. So yeah, if you can get, I would recommend getting a little basic website set up in Wix or wherever. Get that ready, and then you can go to your designer and say, I want to end our contract. Can I have my domain name, please?
Well, I'm not in contact with the designer anymore. That's the problem. So.
Oh, you don't have contact? Oh gosh, yeah. Then you should be able to go through. You should be able to go through a company, Nominet or wherever, and get it off.
Yeah. Okay. I'll go back to people. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah.
That's great. Any more questions for Karen? I think we've covered the chat questions. No, I think we're. Let me put the camera on.
So there's a chat from Anne.
Yep.
Okay.
For the domain name, do you say register with 123 Reg?
123 Reg. Yeah, I mean there are lots of companies you can go to, but I actually use UK2.net, but a lot of my clients use 123 Reg because I think they're better at advertising, and a lot of these domain companies, honestly, they do the same job, so doesn't matter too much. 123 Reg is well known, it's well trusted, and it's just easy for everybody to use. It's quite flexible. I think because I started my domain name before it all became bought my domain name before anybody else was really doing websites. UK2 happened to be the company that was around at the time, but they work for me. But everybody else seems to have caught on to 123 Reg, and that seems to be the standard. And they're reliable. They'll look after you.
That's great. Great. Well, I think, Karen, it's a shame I can't actually see you. I don't know why.
Yeah. I don't know.
We'll get it right one of these days. That was really superb.
I hope it was useful. I may have been preaching to the choir, but
Well, I certainly learned a lot. And you know, I mean, it does take years to build up your basic knowledge of all of these things, because it's such a broad part of our business, isn't it?
yeah. So a lot of us do a lot of it already. It's just joining up those dots.
Yeah.
Just the pre-preparation and just, you know, understanding that actually if you do this now, it'll actually save you time later. And those are the things that most people miss. They'll do most of it, but they won't see those little finer sort of nuances that will really help.
Yeah.
And again, I am guilty of not doing a lot of it too. I'm just so busy running around. The idea of sitting down and organising, I've got thousands of photos. The idea of sitting there and organising them all. But if I did it when I took the photo, it would save myself a lot of time. So I know the theory. I don't always do it. So, you know, we're all human. But we do what we can. That's the point. Don't get overwhelmed by all the knowledge. Just do the things that are easy for you to do. And even that will help. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I think I'd like everybody to unmute themselves, and we'll give Karen a round of applause. Thank you very much. Brilliant.
So yeah, I'll give Sarah the presentation. I'll do a printer version, a printer-friendly version as well. So you can print it off if you want to, because this slide is very colourful and it will use up all your ink. So I'll do a slightly different version that everybody can print out if they want to. And I'll have a go through it because this was cobbled together quite quickly as well. I'll have another read through it and add any things I think I may have missed or might be useful as well. So give me a few days to sort that out and I'll give it to Sarah and she'll make sure you have access.
That's great.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Sophie's going to be Sophie's done some work on the members page for resources, and so these two webinars, yours will be up in the next few days. Last week's is already there, and we'll ask Andy to put it for his slides so we can post those up. And if you were happy to send a file with your slides to Karen, we could put those up next to the webinar on the resources. So that's it on the website. Under your when you log in, under your under the members drop down menu, you'll see resources there. Yeah, that's great. Good. Yeah, so just to say, guys, that we could carry on a lot of this conversation with one another if you're coming along to the Girton Members Evening on Thursday, which you may have already signed up to. There was an email out last week reminding you from Beth, one of our committee members, inviting you to join by pressing that link on the email. So Thursday evening from 7:30, a chance to get together as a community and where new members can meet existing members and share questions and advice and experiences. So that proves to be a nice opportunity. So we could carry on a lot of this conversation there with one another. So that would be nice to see.
I'm sure everybody will have their own websites they use or printers they use, advice they can share, because I don't know it all.
Yeah. It's almost infinite the way we can tailor our own business, isn't it? From what's available, the resources out there. Yeah. So that's Thursday. And yeah, I think also to say that this is a great format for sharing information, resourcing one another, getting to know one another a bit better, finding ways to reach out across the expanses of Cambridgeshire. It's good to have this kind of community base, this hub. And Richard Bray will be taking this webinar programme on for the next year, he'll be looking to put on a couple of topics a term. The sky's the limit, really, with what topics would be useful and interesting. So a call for interested parties will be sent out over the next few months. So if you're thinking you've got something you might like to share too in this format, then we'd be really interested. Muriel's typing, so we'll just hang on until Muriel. Oh, many thanks. You're not available on Thursday. sorry.
So can I quickly just say, I just had a thought, talking about hashtags and things and community and what have you. If you, because obviously Cambridge Open Studio has its own hashtags, you should, when you're posting, should already be using it in the lead up to your Open Studios. If you click that hashtag, it will bring up all the other people who are also using that hashtag. And that is a really easy way to find people who are also exhibiting, and you can then go and comment on their posts. That will help your engagement and that will help theirs. I mean, if we can send out a thing telling everybody to do it, you know, that's such a simple way to build on our community, just using that COS hashtag or whatever it is. So as I'm saying, is these fine-tuning these little details and really thinking about, you know, how you spend your time as well, making sure it's, you know, use your time well. Don't just comment on everybody just because they're there. Really think about who you're going to, if you're going to make the effort, who you're going to do it for. So help your Cambridge community.
Thanks
and that will
for
help
that.
you in return. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good reminder. I'm not very good at remembering to do these kinds of things.
Guilty.
Yeah. There is a webinar that was done a year ago. I think the last 2 years there was a webinar in the late spring looking at social media posting and how we can get up to speed with that. And that again is in the resource section on the website. And you know, but these are constantly needing updating as new things are rolling in so fast, aren't they? The whole use of reels, for example. Yeah, but that's a really good thing. And the last thing to say is there will be, last year it was sent around to us by email and attachment, a document called the membership handbook or something, and it's got all the tips and advice and reminders of what to be doing as we lead up to Open Studios. So we'll be updating that in the next couple of weeks and getting something sent out. So look out for that. But if there are any other things that you think that we need to know to be telling membership to resource people, then just write to info@camopenstudios.org and we'll pick that up. We're always looking to update the information, keep on top of things. Sophie's writing something, so we'll wait and see what she's got to say.
There was a question about what the hashtag is for this year. So I think that's it, but the marketing company will let us all know in due course, I expect.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks, Sophie. Good. And I think with that, if that's everything, yeah, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, see you again.
Yes. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Lots of nice thank yous from people. Thanks, Karen. That was really super.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I did a presentation as well, because I will waffle on and go off in different directions. So I thought if I've got it in front of me, I can't wander, because I started to go off.
It really is. But the slides help, don't they? They
do,
keep
yeah.
on track. It really is endless. I mean, you can just
It's
go
never
on.
ending. Yeah. And I think that's part of the problem. There's so much you have to think about that people end up not doing anything, and then they're moaning because nothing's happening. You kind of got to do something, you know. And if you can do it in small ways, it will really help.
It is just overwhelming to the point of
Yeah.
being stifling. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's just one little thing at a time, isn't it, really? Yeah. Good. Well, I hope to see you in your studio one of these days.
Yes, you're welcome. Definitely.
Great. Yeah. I'll say goodbye now. Cheerio.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.